This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Hey indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond.
I'm Nick Bodmer, and today we're testing out 4 inexpensive USB studio microphones.
I got a lot of mics here today.
You got too many mics, it sounds like.
I actually had to go wide angle on the lens today. I'm using my 8 to 18 millimeter lens so you can see more of my desk, and the fact that I actually have 5 mics in front of me today. I have 4 USB mics, and off to the side is the blue baby bottle XLR mic that both you and I use.
Yep. And what brought you to this? You just like, hey, I got some microphones, let's try them out? Why are we doing this?
Well, there's kind of 2 reasons I'm doing this. It started with, I get requests all the time. Mic companies are always asking me to test out their equipment, lav mics and shotgun mics and studio mics. And most of these I'm not interested in because they're really cheap or they're just not something I need. And, there's a million mics out there. But I got 2 companies that asked me to test out their mics, and I was interested for a couple of reasons. One is the FIFINE K678. It's a $60 microphone.
Okay.
And normally, an inexpensive microphone, I'm not all that interested because there's so many of them out there. But for 2 reasons I was interested in this one. Because I did an Indie Mogul episode maybe a year or 2 ago where we tested out a FIFINE mic. And it was cheap, and it actually sounded pretty good. I was really impressed with the quality, except that it had this buzzing sound in the background.
Is this the one you took apart? I had this in my mind that you took something apart to make a buzzing sound go away.
Yeah, no, I think I did
making that
take.
up?
I think I took the mic, the shield off, thinking I could try to figure out what was going on. Is there a problem that's visually obvious inside? There wasn't, but I think when I took the shield off, it got even worse.
You broke it.
Yeah. But I always thought, man, it was too bad that something was wrong with that mic, that it was causing that background sound, because otherwise, the quality of the frequency response it was getting was nice. I liked how it sounded, except that you'd have to run noise reduction to get rid of this buzz. So it was disqualified. But I was curious if FIFINE had made a new mic that had fixed that problem. And 2, I'm interested in these kind of mics right now because so many people keep asking me over the pandemic, everyone's buying mics right now, USB mics, and so many of them are sold out. And so it's always well, my first choice would be this one, but it's sold out. My second choice would be this one, but it's sold out. So it suddenly seems relevant.
Because of the pandemic and everybody's doing Zoom meetings and wants to sound better, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now I feel if this mic is potentially good, it's not, you can buy the FIFINE K678 right now. So I'm wondering, is it actually worthwhile?
All right. Well, let's find out. I'm excited.
Yeah. Let me start by going through these 4 mics that I have here.
Okay.
I also was offered the Movo UM800, which is...
Yep.
Movo is a brand that makes a lot of inexpensive filmmaking gear. I've never tried any of their equipment. And as soon as I got this mic, I realized it is exactly the same thing as the blue Yeti. It's the form factor's the same.
It's a knockoff?
Yeah. I mean, it's trying to do everything the blue Yeti does, which makes sense because the blue Yeti, do you think that's the most popular podcasting mic out there?
I think it's got to be, yeah. Everyone recommends it when you're getting started podcasting, basically.
Yeah. So the Blue Yeti is a $130 USB microphone that just looks familiar because a lot of people use it. And this Movo has all the same dials. It's the same height, same shape. In fact, the funny thing was it's a silver microphone, and the Blue Yeti, you can also order it in silver, but of course it was sold out in silver.
Of course.
I wanted to get 2 identical looking microphones to test out, but it was sold out. So I ended up getting a midnight blue version here.
But I love a good midnight blue, so,
yeah,
that's nice.
So I had those 3 going, and then I decided, hey, let's throw in one more, and I ordered...
Throw it in there.
I don't even know if you've ever heard of this one, the Elgato Wave 1.
I'm familiar with the company. They're the ones who do all, I've got a Elgato 4K cam link, which I use to use my Sony camera as a webcam, but I did not know they made microphones, so that makes sense.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. I didn't know they made microphones either, but I guess if you're in the streaming business, and this is actually kind of a beautiful mic. It has kind of this classic shape, and it just looks really nice. So I thought I would try it out. It's also $130. So the Blue Yeti and the Elgato are the same price at $130. The Movo's $150, so it's our most expensive, and the FIFINE is the cheapest at only $60.
Beautiful.
But FIFINE is also a nice looking mic. Just a little black mic, looks great.
All right.
So first thing I want you to do is I want you to hear, I did a mic test between the Movo and the Blue Yeti. Without telling you which is which, I want to get your thoughts.
Okay.
Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond, and this is the Movo UM800 and the Blue Yeti.
I think it sounded pretty good, was my first impression of Mic A. It sounds like it's got a little lift in the mids. Now, I am listening on gaming headphones, which is maybe not ideal, but let's see what Mic B sounds like.
Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond, and this is the Movo UM800 and the Blue Yeti.
Yeah, Mic A is a little brighter, it sounds like. Maybe a little more mid-range lift, but I thought they both sounded pretty decent as my first impression.
Right. Either one of them, I mean, if you weren't doing a side-by-side test, either one of them would be fine for this kind of usage. I thought the exact same thing, that A sounded a little bit brighter, and in my opinion, that made it sound more usable for my voice, it seemed like. That is the Blue Yeti that was a little bit brighter sounding. Okay.
Yep. And that's good for general usage. You kind of want to see that little mid-range lift. Like a really popular stage mic is the Shure SM58. And it's got a very similar, I would guess, EQ response, frequency response, with a lift right in the mid-range, right where the human vocal range lives. Helps with clarity and things like that. Okay, what's next?
Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond, and this is the Elgato Wave 1 and the FIFINE K678.
Okay, just listen to C. First thing I noticed was more room noise, more room tone, I think. Or at least maybe a little more bass response, but sounded pretty good, I would say.
Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond, and this is the Elgato Wave 1 and the FIFINE K678.
Yeah, I think I prefer C to D, but to be honest, I expected one of these to sound really bad, and I don't think any of them sound bad. I think I might prefer the tone on C and D over A and B. Am I crazy?
No, I think you've come to exactly the same conclusion I came to. Two important things. I think the first lesson is like, there really isn't that big of a difference between these kind of microphones that you really, any of them would sound fine, and you would never get the opportunity to do a side-by-side test, so no one would ever know that one's a little brighter. But I found myself gravitating towards C out of all four of the microphones, which is actually the cheap FIFINE one.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, one thing I'd be interested in is, what if we introduce a little background noise and see which rejects noise better? That would be the only other kind of test that might be important.
It's interesting that you said that these ones sounded like they picked up more room tone, because the Movo and the Blue Yeti both have a dial on the back that can switch between 4 different pickup styles.
Sure.
Pickup patterns, and they're both set to cardioid right now. So they are trying to reject sound that's not super close.
And what was the price spread on these again?
The FIFINE was only $60.
Okay, that's a deal.
The Elgato and the Blue Yeti are each $130, and the Movo's $150, which, if it's trying to compete against the Blue Yeti, it can't beat it on price. It's probably not beating it on quality. I don't really see what it's doing in that. Yeah,
exactly.
Price
and
space.
These are all USB, right? So you don't need any kind of audio input device. You just plug these right into your computer, and away you go, right?
Yeah, you just plug them in.
That's so nice.
I will say, I thought this was mostly going to be a test about quality, audio quality, but as we've seen, I mean, the quality difference is almost negligible unless you are, you're an audiophile. But like most people just need a mic that's close to their mouth, and it's going to sound pretty good. So having 4 different mics that all do 4 different things and plug in 4 different ways, and they all seem to come in with a different signal strength, it just instantly, I feel like this review could easily be more just about like what they do and how they do it and where the buttons are and how the buttons work, because they're all a little bit annoying in their own ways. Like, I think the Blue Yeti, I have its gain turned all the way down, and
Okay.
in the audio recording software in Audio Hijack, I haven't adjusted the level in Audio Hijack. It's just like set to normal. It was coming in real hot, and so I had to go to the system settings on the Mac and turn it significantly down. I think let me pull up those settings. I mean, I don't know what these digital.
Well, and in general, that's a good thing,
mean.
right? Especially if the gain's all the way down and you're getting a nice strong signal, that's just less opportunity to have to amplify it and amplify noise that gets introduced at some point too. So that could be a mark of a higher quality DAC.
Yeah, but I guess I just wonder, for your average user or below average user who plugs this into the computer for the first time and just starts rolling,
and they're clipping like crazy. Yeah.
And then I'm trying to turn down the gain on the back of the microphone, and there's nothing I can do. I'm always peaking. Maybe I'm just too loud. I'm too close to the mic. But I was just surprised.
It's probably also designed to sit. You look at those little stands. They're expecting you to be a little farther back from the microphone too. I would guess. Just to simplify the user interface, whereas you're picking it up in these tests and getting pretty close, as we know you should, right? I mean, we're going to get the highest audio quality by being really close, but that does mean probably you're going to have to turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm setting myself up like this is a voiceover studio. I'm 6 inches from each microphone. I've even lifted them up a little bit, but that's not the standard use case. Most people are going to have them on a desk. And most people, I don't think, are very loud. If you ever interview someone who's never been on camera, the first time they talk, they're not speaking with a lot of volume.
Hey, indie filmmakers. It's Nick here. Pleasure to see you again. Like that.
Yeah. But I think in a lot of ways I was kind of turned off by the Movo and the Blue Yeti. I mean, the Blue Yeti's so popular, but those kind of gain issues right off the bat, each of them took a lot of tweaking in my settings to even get them usable. Like the Movo, they each have a headphone jack on the bottom for monitoring. The Movo, I could only, I could mess around with the gain dial and the volume dial for the headphones, and it was only if I was peaking could I even hear myself in the headphones. I'd have to turn the headphones all the way up and turn the gain way up to even hear anything. It's not a...
Yeah, that's annoying.
Not really a reasonable way to monitor the mic.
No. Do any of them have a cough button or a mute button?
Yeah, all four of them have mute buttons. And that was another thing. I kind of like the way the FIFINE does it the most. The FIFINE, when you push mute, it turns from green to red.
Okay, so
The Elgato is actually also pretty elegant. It's a white dial that you push and it turns red. It's a ring that turns red. The Movo turns red when you mute, and the Blue Yeti is kind of the weirdest one. It's red when it's rolling, which I guess is the record color, and then when you mute, it flashes red, which just doesn't seem nearly as intuitive as the green red or the white red.
Right.
But yeah, I think just styling-wise too, the Movo and the Yeti are these very big, bulky microphones. I don't think they look all that beautiful. The Elgato is the one that probably looks the prettiest. And it's just very simple style. And the FIFINE, also, it's a beautiful mic. And if you were to take it off this little stand, the stand already looks pretty nice. But all of them have the normal size ring for mics. The FIFINE has a tripod-sized one on the bottom, but then it comes with an adapter that expands it out to the bigger one.
Oh, okay. So you can mount it if you need to pretty easily.
Yeah. And I think especially... the FIFINE probably would look the prettiest just on a regular mic stand because it's just a very simple black capsule. I think that's what I'm impressed about. So all in all, cheapest mic, sounds pretty good, looks pretty. I'd say it's a good buy.
Nice. How do they compare to the Blue Baby bottle?
Once you watch this next video where I actually test all 5, you can hear Peter play around with the mics too. You'll also catch that I was pretty bad at controlling the volume on the Movo. So I think I was peaking for most of it. Hey Pete, do you want to come try these with me? You want to talk into the mics?
Yeah.
Hello, testing. This is the FIFINE K678. Can you count to 5 in Spanish?
1, 2, cheese, quite single.
Great, very good. Now we're talking to the Elgato Wave microphone. Testing, testing. What do you want to say to this microphone?
Hiya. Hiya. On the door, cheese, quite single.
Now I'm talking to my blue baby bottle microphone.
On the door, cheese, quite single.
And now I'm talking to the very popular blue Yeti microphone.
On the door, cheese, quite single.
Very good. Can you say Yeti?
Yeti. Nom 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 nom. Yeti.
Yeti? And this one is called the Movo.
On the door, cheese, quite single. On the door, cheese, quite single on a megaphone.
On every microphone, yeah.
I think the baby bottle did sound the best.
Yeah.
Out of all of them. And even the blue Yeti felt like it had a little too much gain, maybe.
Yeah, it did on my first test. And that was the thing. It's like the first time I set these up to try them, I thought I was dialing in the Movo and the blue Yeti at a reasonable gain level, and they both were pretty hot. So it took me like three different tests until finally the test that I shared with you between the Movo and the blue Yeti was like the third or fourth attempt I took at like, let me see if I can dial in this gain pretty well, which is why I'm just kind of disappointed that out of the box I struggled to find the right level for these.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you need a microphone, it sounds like, and again, tell me the FIFINE. That's a great brand name. I love it.
Yeah, FIFINE. This is the Case 678. It has, I think all four of these have headphone jacks on the bottom. You know what's weird? I couldn't get the Elgato headphone jack to work. Like, plug my headphones in, nothing comes out. I don't
like. Do you need their software or something to change settings around or something, perhaps? Because I know Elgato's got a lot of like software designed to work with this stuff.
Well, do you think somehow it's like sending its audio to the computer, and then when you plug in headphones, you're actually getting its audio from the computer, not from the mic itself?
Could be.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I guess it could be. The Elgato is the one here that's USB-C, which just feels kind of nice to use USB-C. The other ones, you know what's so funny? The FIFINE and the Blue Yeti both use mini USB.
Ugh.
That old D-shaped kind of like not micro. Everything is micro these days.
Mini USB.
But mini USB, which is the same thing that actually the Zoom H5 uses. So I have some mini cables around.
Yeah, but they got rid of that because it fails over time. So if you have to unplug and plug it in a lot, you don't want mini USB. Although I should say my H4n I'm using as my input device for this blue baby bottle is mini USB, but it's super old, so it makes sense. I mean, when did we buy this H4n? This is the one we split together, I think, way back in the day. We got this when we bought the GH1, I think.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it's still got the broken microphone from where you let it fall over.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
It's like I got one of the little mic capsules built in is all taped on there because Griffin put it on a mic stand and it fell over and smashed on the ground.
Yeah, it was like 10 years ago or something.
More than that, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot. You're using the H4n. I'm using the H5, which is different. Yeah. But it's funny, the H5 is newer, and they didn't switch to, like, micro USB or something. It's still using mini USB.
Anywho, that's microphone fun for the day, I guess, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other weirdness on these things that I encountered. I think another thing I didn't like about the design of the Movo and the Blue Yeti is they're both top heavy, and they have like the stand that kind of like you turn it to clamp on, but if they're not tight enough, they fall over.
Yeah, you, as we just said, you have problems with mics falling over. You break my stuff.
Right,
so
yeah.
That's not good.
And the way the stand on the Blue Yeti's designed, it could like dent itself on its own stand. Like, so I don't know. That just seems silly to me too. So all in all, I think I'm mostly trying to use this as a takedown of the Blue Yeti. It's such a popular microphone, and I just have a lot of things about it I don't like.
Okay, don't buy the Blue Yeti.
Yeah. Or at least
Who
now I
would've
know I
thought?
have.
That's
like,
what when somebody asks me, I'm like, I hear this Blue Yeti's good. Might as well get that.
Might as well get the FIFINE. And now I'm just turning it into a big commercial for the FIFINE, which I guess is exactly what they wanted.
You sound like you're sponsored by FIFINE, so good job.
I mean, I did already tell the audience that I got this mic for free, so it's that
He just wants to keep that inexpensive free mics rolling in, you know? You're basically just a shill because you love those sweet, sweet free microphones.
Well, actually, I'm glad it's decent because, like, what I don't need is a whole bunch of free microphones that are cheap and not good. And so, like, I actually don't own any USB microphones. I've never, why would I need it? I have the H5 that I use as an interface, and I buy XLR microphones. But
if you were only going to be, like, recording, if you weren't doing video work elsewhere and all your recording was done in front of the computer, why not get a USB mic, right? It's just one less thing to worry about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and maybe I'll
Would you
keep it
agree?
around and use it for a live stream or something. There's probably some things that it'd be nice just to have a decent USB mic sitting around.
Yeah.
You noticed that in that video, Peter was acting like he was going to eat the Yeti?
Yeah.
I realize it's because his only exposure to the word Yeti is that he has a book called Never Feed a Yeti Spaghetti.
Ah.
And it's a weird book because that's the title, and it has a Yeti on the front, and then it never talks about the Yeti in the book or spaghetti.
That is weird.
So it makes me wonder.
I was going to say, I assume it was like give a moose a muffin type of a thing, but it sounds like no.
Yeah.
Not.
It's just a silly book with a bunch of rhymes about food inside, and it's about other animals inside. But
I see.
But it makes me wonder, does he even know what a Yeti is? Or does he think the Yeti is the food?
There's an animated film about a Yeti if you need to, introduce him to Yeti culture when he's ready.
Right, yeah. When he's ready, yeah.
It's got good music in it.
Well, before we thank our sponsor, I just want to say that we have a couple questions from our audience that we'll get to in a moment about upgrading a Mac and also our opinion on a particular stylistic technique that's often used in video production.
Hey, Filmmakers is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your filmmaking business.
And one thing I just learned about Squarespace is that they have a promotion where if you sign up for an annual plan, 1 year of Squarespace service, you get a free custom domain name out of the deal. So, I mean, you're obviously going to need that when you set up your website. And there's many different domain suffixes included. You can have .com, of course. You can have .tech, .news, .rocks. I mean, if you just wanted to make a fan site, griffinhammond.rocks, I wouldn't stop you.
It's fantastic. So check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Griffin to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
So, Nick, we have a question for you from Brian, who emailed and asked that he's thinking it's time for him to upgrade his computer this year because he's currently on a 2013 27-inch iMac, and he's working with GH5 footage. He's doing 30-second commercials and things like that. But he's stuck on an old version of Final Cut. I think it won't let him update. And he uses an OWC Thunder Bay 4 and also an external 4 terabyte backup drive. But he's also kind of wondering, what do we use for storage and what about cloud backup, that sort of thing?
All right. So storage-wise, we both have Synology NAS's, network attached storage, right? You have the same thing, don't you?
I do, yeah.
And I use that mainly as an archive, right? They're not super fast, so you wouldn't want to put your current project on there. But for a raw footage backup, for all my final outputs, I have those on there. That mine has 48 terabytes of raw storage, which is like 36 terabytes usable after we lose one to the RAID parity to make sure if a drive fails, you don't lose anything. And then I have the Synology setup where not my raw footage, but all the final videos that I put in there to save automatically get archived to Google Drive. So I have it set up to sync all that to Google Drive as a backup. And then on my main computer, I have a 2 terabyte external SSD that I'll use for current projects and things like that. My new MacBook Air actually has a terabyte of internal storage. My old one had quite a bit less, so I had to kind of do everything off that external SSD. But now I could definitely do a project locally, which is nice. And then I use a backup tool called Backblaze, which just backs up everything on your computer up to the cloud automatically all the time. So I think it's $10 a month or something per computer, and it's definitely worthwhile to have. So
yeah,
that's my storage.
And I'm guessing Backblaze gives you more storage space than Google Drive does for the money?
Backblaze gives you unlimited per computer, but they won't back up network drives. So that's why I send that off to Google Drive, where I'm paying for like 2 terabytes or something like that.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I have 2 terabytes on Google, which is relatively inexpensive. I think I pay $100 a year or something.
Sounds about right.
And then,
Now, I've actually been thinking about getting rid of the Google portion of that because I do still have my old NAS I have not finished. I need to set it up as a backup target for my current NAS and then move it off site. I just haven't had time to work on that yet. So that's another way, so the Synologies will replicate data to a second Synology, which you could move somewhere else as another form of backup. So that's something I need to work on, but haven't done yet.
Yeah. And then in terms of if he's going to upgrade his system, I'm guessing you would recommend don't upgrade an iMac at the moment.
I would not buy any iMac right now. Yeah, we're so close to them getting updated with the Apple Silicon chips that the ones for sale right now are Intel, and I would not buy an Intel Mac unless you absolutely had to. So if you're waiting for an iMac, just hold out a little longer. I think this year there's going to be a pretty fantastic update to the iMac with Apple Silicon, and that's what you're going to want. Now, if you want a laptop, and like we did in our last episode, even the MacBook Air is a phenomenal little system. But if you're used to an iMac with a nice big screen, I would just wait for the new iMac to come out.
Yeah, I'm guessing. I would imagine much of our audience is already familiar with this, but if you're not, and you don't just want to get buying advice from Nick, you can always look at the Mac Rumors buying guide.
Yeah, Mac Rumors has a pretty good buying guide, and they've got go ahead and buy this product, or maybe think about not buying it, or for the love of God, don't buy this right now. And
because it's about to be refreshed, probably.
Yeah, I would assume they're saying, oh my God, don't buy this right now on anything that's not Apple Silicon.
Yeah.
Hope that helped.
Yeah.
And then we got a question from Blend That Film on Twitter. Hey, Griffin, what are your thoughts on the editing of this video? It seems like the side shots are very awkward, and he still delivers it direct to the front camera. Maybe it's just his delivery. The trend of BTS camera intercut with main camera is getting a bit loose, I feel.
So yeah, I don't want to show the video that he's referring to necessarily, because I don't want to shame, because I don't think the people producing this video did anything wrong, but he's talking about a technique that you see a lot where you have the host of a video talking to camera, and then they cut to a side angle close-up, and he doesn't like it, and I don't really like it either. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I mean, the technique's been around for a while, right? Like, I feel like MTV back 20 years ago was doing this. Am I crazy?
Yeah, no, they've been doing it for a while. And sometimes it's low angle. I think often the angle is just too extreme. Like they went like a full 90 degrees away. Yeah. And so my response to him was, I'm okay with the 2-camera thing, but like especially if it's a hosted thing where you expect them to make eye contact with the camera, I don't think the second angle should be so extreme and so close. So close, like close up. I think if anything, the second camera should be a wide angle shot, wider than the first shot, and probably pretty close to the first camera. So you can probably tell the host is not looking at the camera, but it's not as pronounced because you're not zoomed way in on their face. And I just think the side angle should usually be wider than the main angle.
Well, but my only thought is, that's got to be what they're going for, though, right? They want something jarring and totally different. You would assume, or why else would you do something like that? Unless you think it's just become a thing everybody does and doesn't think about it.
Right. Well, and that's why I didn't want to trash on it too much, because like it's a conscious choice they made. Like it's completely just a subjective thing that we're talking about. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. I think because you're used to a host looking at the audience, the more you draw attention to the fact that they're not talking to you anymore, I think that it feels weird.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of says, like, look, we're in a space, we're shooting this, it like kind of almost pulls you out of whatever they're talking about, right? Which I assume is another intentional choice, but it definitely almost breaks the fourth wall. Is that one of the ways we would say that?
Yeah, it draws attention to itself, yeah. And I think the other thing is just my editing style. I understand why you do that second angle or any second angle. You do it for coverage because, maybe the CEO of a company is not going to be able to deliver all their lines flawlessly. But this was a product video, and I just thought, why wouldn't you just cut away from the guy and show the product? Like, just show more B-roll in a video. It was a lot of like talking headshots, and I just thought, this is a video about a product, and you're showing a lot of this person talking. I would just cut away, just get one angle, and just leave that shot and go show the product. That's how I would have done it. There
we go. Well, I would love to know if we've got good examples of that effect being used well. That might be interesting. So if you guys can think of any off the top of your head, throw something in the comments.
Right,
because I feel like it's got to have its time and place, probably.
Well, the funny thing is, I know for a fact that the next freelance assignment I'm on, I'm going to do a 2-camera. I'm going to do exactly this with the host looking at camera A and a second camera. So I guess I'm going to try to follow my own advice and keep it pretty close to keep the 2 cameras a similar angle, and the second shot that he's not looking at will be wider.
If that angle is 1 degree too much, I'm going to rip you apart.
Speaking of
Bring your
angles that are wrong, I don't know if anyone noticed this. I don't know if you noticed this, that in the last episode, I was facing the wrong way.
I did not. Didn't notice.
Yeah, I normally, we have this shot set up where we're both looking to the side of our camera, and when we pair our shots, it kind of looks like a dialogue scene in a film. Like we're both kind of tilted towards each other, just a little bit. And last time we recorded, I can't remember why I had my microphone set up on the wrong side, and I think because I was doing a Zoom call before this or something, and I found myself facing the other way to the other side of my camera, talking to the microphone.
You just flip the image then?
And I flipped the image because it wasn't even an extreme angle. I probably could have left it, but it was just far enough that I thought, this looks a little strange. So I ended up horizontally flipping the shot, or vertically flipping. I don't know which one it is.
This way.
Yeah, I flipped it. And so if anyone is intimately familiar with the windows in my room or my haircut, you may have noticed it was backwards. It was a mirror image.
I did not notice. Although I did watch the episode. I thought that was a pretty fun episode. I kind of enjoed it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, if
maybe it was too nerdy for you, but I thought it was a pretty fun one.
No, it was fun. I just felt bad that we messed up the beginning of the episode and had our screen recording slow down the video.
That's how you know it's real, baby. We're not making this up.
Right.
All right, sir.
Here, one more thing I want to give an update on.
Okay.
I think I should make a whole video about this eventually. But you and I started figuring out the problem with my lighting flicker.
Yeah.
And you found, there's not a lot of documentation or people talking about this online, but you found someone online was talking about the frequency rate of these Philips Hue bulbs that I'm using.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what it sounds like is, the bulbs are dimmable, right? You can control the intensity of the light. And the way it does that is by rapidly cycling the actual LED bulb on and off. So fast your eye can't even tell. But it just adds more off cycles when you're dimming it down. But that means, they are always refreshing quickly. And apparently it's not uncommon for it to cause problems with digital video cameras, which, can get in the middle of that frequency in a weird way and make things flicker.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing is I didn't really notice any flicker problems. Although I think if you watch the episode about the Philips Hue lights when we are first talking about it, and I have a little lamp on my desk. I think if you look closely when I'm flipping around the colors and turning it on and off, the lamp, you may notice a little bit of like little flicker lines, kind of like rolling shutter lines happening while with this light. And so I wasn't sure because I don't really notice it with these lights much above me, but that's because most of my light in this shot is coming from an LED panel or the sunlight behind me, which is mostly, it's crushing the whatever light I'm getting from those bulbs. So I did a test today just to be sure, and sure enough, at 60 frames a second or 30 frames a second at a 1/60th shutter speed, I do get a problem with the bulbs, which is counterintuitive because the whole point of shooting at 30 frames a second, 1/60th of a second shutter, is that it matches the power system in the US.
Right, but these are not analog bulbs, right? Now there's a computer involved that is
my understanding is that
how often they update. So the AC frequency no longer has any impact on how quickly the bulb is actually cycling.
Right. Yeah, if you have a normal light bulb, you're hitting it with, the AC is fluctuating 60 times a second, 60 hertz. I think it's fluctuating 120 times because it goes up and down in one cycle. But so it's bouncing back and forth 120 times a second. And so as long as you match that frequency, you're good. But with the Philips Hue, it's taking that 60 hertz power in through AC, it's converting it to DC, and then it appears that it's cycling these LEDs at like 1,000 times a second, like 1,000 hertz.
Right, but it doesn't divide evenly into what your shutter speed is, whatever it is.
Yeah.
My guess is if you could probably find a dim setting where all of a sudden the flicker goes away, would be my guess, as it adjusts that frequency for dimming. But you probably want to be able to use it at full blast. Well, so what's the solution? Are you just going to have to not use Philips Hue bulbs for your main lighting, like you were hoping?
Yeah, I mean that would be one option, is to go with a completely different source. But there's a bunch of reasons I don't want to do that because there are a lot of Hue products, and so I did. You can just do the basic math here. 1,000, if it really is 1,000 hertz, which it appears it is, and divide it by 60 for a 1/60th shutter, you get 16.66 cycles. So there's your problem. That's not an integer. It's If it was capturing 16 full cycles, it would be fine. But the fact that it captures 2/3 of a cycle in one frame and then 2/3 of a cycle in the next frame, it's going to be different amounts of brightness in each frame. But 1,000 divided by 50 is 20, and sure enough, when I go to a 1/50th shutter, that's what I'm actually filming today on. So I'm still filming 30 frames a second, but I'm at a 1/50th of a second shutter, so it's a little bit brighter. I don't see any flicker. I did a
bada bing, bada boom. Problem solved.
And presumably 100. I know. I also tested 100. 100 works as well.
But my guess is when you start dimming, then you might notice it gets reintroduced because that 1,000 hertz refresh cycle is changing again. So that's something interesting to test. What level of dimming you can do even at that shutter speed, and if it changes.
Right.
Yeah, you do need to do a video on this. Get on it.
Yeah. Although, I mean, in my early test, it always did seem like when I flip off the lights, when you turn off the lights, they dim down to 0. They don't instantly go off. They actually they fade down.
Fade out, yeah.
And during the fade, it does seem like you see more of the flicker. And I don't know the math about why, but like you're saying, that may be why, because it's actually maybe cutting down the rate. But when I was in 50 frames a second, or sorry, not 50 frames, but 1/50th of a second shutter, or in 1/100th of a second shutter, I didn't see that problem. So it seemed like through the full range, it was fixed by doing that.
Yeah, maybe it steps it down in nice even chunks in a way that it's all still evenly divisible.
Yeah. So
these are the tests you'll need to do for your full video.
Yeah, and it may just be. I mean, I feel it'll feel dumb to have to do it, but I can manage that if I just shoot everything in 1/50th or 1/100th or 1/200th or 1/500th. I suppose even 2/50th. Maybe I'll be okay. Well,
you'll have to test it. That's the only
for
way we'll know.
For anyone who's new to Flickr, the rule of thumb here is you just need either your shutter speed or your frame rate to match, which is why generally if you shoot 30,
but that makes sense.
It doesn't have to be both. It just has to be one of them. So that's why generally shooting 30 frames a second in the US, where lights generally flicker at 60 hertz, you'll always be fine with that kind of lighting. But it's the same reason that you always have a problem when you shoot 24 frames in the US. You probably run into flicker all the time.
But if you're at 24 frames in 1/60th of a second, you'd be fine?
Then you'd be fine, yeah.
Got it.
So likewise, I'm sticking with my 30 frames per second, which definitely does not easily, nicely with an integer fit into 1,000, but a 1/50th of a second shutter does, so it solves it.
Math is fun.
Yeah. It took me so long to understand that principle too, like to even wrap my brain around the math of it. I feel like people have explained Flickr to me 100 times in my video career, and it was only like a couple of years ago I finally drew out some charts and was like, okay, I think I understand now.
I get it now. I just assume you're right. And it all sounds like voodoo to me, so I'm just going to go with it.
Well, and that's the crazy thing about trying to solve this problem is just to go online and Google like Flickr with Philips Hue lights. You have a lot of people who are not filmmakers who are for the first time experiencing this problem. They're a streamer, they have some lights, and so many of the answers are just like they're dismissing the idea that these lights even have a weird flicker rate. They're like, oh, you just need to make sure your shutter speed matches. Like, you're just an idiot. You're new to filmmaking. And it's like, no, actually, in this case, the light is weird.
Yeah. Like I said, now there's a computer involved. These little light bulbs have computers in them. It's not an analog device anymore, so all the rules get thrown out.
Right. And honestly,
which makes me wonder. I wonder. So, like our LED panels that are designed for video, what are they doing? Is their refresh rate just like insanely high, so it's not even an issue, or I wonder how they handle dimming and stuff. That'd be kind of interesting. If anybody knows, drop a comment.
Yeah, I do know that my Westcott Flex LED that I'm using for my key light right now, I've never seen flicker from it. So I mean, it's clearly designed to not have that problem. But yeah,
I'm just wondering how, because it's dimmable,
maybe they figure out a way to make it continuous somehow. Like maybe every other light is on when the other one's off or something. I don't know.
I have absolutely no idea, but it's fascinating. Can you call your friends at Westcott and ask how they do it?
Maybe I should.
You should. All right, my friend, it's time. It's time to shut it down. Don't you think? Talking to you. It has been a pleasure. And we will talk to you all, in 2 weeks? So that's what we do now, every 2 weeks.
Yeah. See you in 2 weeks.
Hope you're enjoying just a little bit too much Nick and Griffin. That's how we like to do it. Just enough so you're like, do I want to watch the next one? All right, I will. At least that's what I assume everybody's like. I don't know why anybody watches this at all, to be honest.
All right, I waved goodbye twice. Now I'm going to wave goodbye for the third time.
Goodbye.
Bye. I realized I was rolling all 5 microphones that entire episode, and I should have been like, now you're hearing this one. Now you're hearing this one.
You can put something on the screen if you want to do that.